Now back to Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis.
And welcome back this week into our final segment on Inside West Virginia Politics. We're joined by our sponsor, AARP. Gaylene Miller is the Executive Director of AARP of West Virginia. Great to have you on the show again.
Thanks, Mark. Good to be here.
Well, we're in the middle of, or nearing the end. By the time this airs, the legislative session will be pretty much over, perhaps. Some bills you lobbied for are doing well. In particular, we're taping Friday morning here. The governor is set to sign later today the Telehealth Bill. Tell us what the need was there and what this bill will accomplish in terms of telehealth, especially for seniors.
Sure. Thank you so much. Early on in the pandemic, the governor signed some executive orders that really eliminated some artificial barriers, got rid of some red tape that would allow providers, both in-state and out of state, to practice up, as long as they're in good standing, that they could practice across state lines through telehealth. Important provisions were that it could be audio only. So if we don't have broadband or high-speed internet, the visit can be by telephone. We thought that was very important. You know, we have lots of border counties and a lot of folks who were seen by the regular physician that happens to be across the river or across the state line. So this was really important for people to continue to have access to health care.
Well, the other bill you're working on, and this ties into it with telehealth, is broadband expansion, improving broadband. I mean, there's bipartisan support in the legislature for this. It's in a final passage in the Senate on Friday. And so what is your hope for the broadband bill, and how will that specifically help seniors?
So it's a very comprehensive bill. So it deals both with the deployment of broadband, the build out of the network, as well as what we call adoption, or what we want to make sure is reliable, affordable, high-speed internet, particularly in unserved areas or rural areas. The bill creates the Office of Broadband, and it outlines the duties and responsibilities of that office and how they coordinate with the Broadband Council. It has mapping and reporting requirements, which we think are very important because of accountability and transparency. I think problems that we've experienced in the past with providers, we want to avoid those problems of past performance or poor performance in the past. It also includes some really important consumer protections. So things like credits for outages or network resiliency. So those things we think are really important.
Another bill that I know you've been very concerned about because seniors especially fall prey to financial scams. There is a bill working its way through in the 11th hour to add some financial protections. Talk about that.
So financial exploitation is an issue we work on almost every year. It's a priority for us. It used to be strangers taking advantage of older adults and coming between them and their hard-earned money. Unfortunately, now we see it's more a trusted friend or a family member, and those are folks that the individual is less likely to want to prosecute. So we're putting forth an idea that the legislature seems to have an appetite to approve, and that is a protective order, which is similar to what you see in domestic violence cases. So it really kind of puts a stop, puts on the brakes, doesn't allow that individual to have access to the bank account without necessarily having to do prosecution.
I want to talk about your overall lobbying efforts. Like so many organizations, you can't be at the Capitol in person. You have to do Zoom meetings with senators and delegates. What's it been like this year? How challenging has it been? And do you think you've been successful in executing your plan, even though you can't get into the Capitol?
So I would say it's certainly been a different session for us. Historically, we've had our army of redcoats in the Capitol, working the halls, working with lawmakers, working with policymakers, working with other partner groups. So it's been different. But overall, I would say it's been fairly successful for us. And I give a shout out to our redcoats, our volunteer advocacy team, who stayed engaged, who stayed active, whether it's through phone calls or emails, handwritten notes, being recognized by senators, their senator from the floor, putting them on notice that we're watching. And so overall, I think it's been very successful. And of course, the Zoom meetings that we've had, particularly with newer lawmakers, recently elected lawmakers, have been very successful.
Well, hopefully this time next year, we'll be all back to normal and we'll be all packed into a crowded Capitol, okay?
Fingers crossed.
All right. Gaylene Miller from the AARP of West Virginia, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being our sponsor. And we'll have you back again soon. We want to thank you. You're very welcome. We want to thank everyone for watching Inside West Virginia Politics. Remember, we are a podcast. Download us from your favorite podcast vendor.